In the first WordPress security video, which you can find a link in the description below, we went over the simpler prerequisite techniques to locking down WordPress using a few key plugins. In this video, we'll be taking it a notch further and adding more layers of security to our site by doing a little coding. Nothing too challenging, but they are highly effective techniques. We have to add multiple barriers of security layers because there really is no silver bullet to security. All you can really do is make it harder for your site to get hacked by an attacker. It's kind of like the real world. Unless you are specifically targeted, a burglar will be looking for a house that is the easiest to break into and then get out. So they would be looking for a house that has an open first floor window, shiny objects that can easily be accessible and seen, and vegetations that may be covering the front entrance and so forth. If a house doesn't look like it's an easy job, they're more likely than not to move to the next house that it may potentially be an easier target. So with that being said, the techniques in this video should also be used in conjunction with the techniques shown in the first video, even though I'll be demoing on a brand new site. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing I want to mention is that you should get an SSL certificate. That can be set up by your host. Some even offer it for free. I know Bluehost does. The next few technique requires access to the wp-config.php file, which is located in the root of your server. The easiest way to get to that file if you're not a professional web developer is to FTP in. So this is the wp-config.php file that I'm talking about. And I want the focus to be on lines 23 through line 26. So I mentioned about SSL. Once an SSL certificate has been installed, the first thing you want to do is within wp-config.php is to essentially add this line, define force SSL admin and set it to true. And that will basically tell WordPress that you want to have WordPress use SSL whenever somebody tries to log into the admin. Now, I don't have SSL installed on this local WordPress site. I'm going to comment this off. The next two lines, line 24 and 25, WP home and WP site URL, what that does is essentially allows you to hard code the URL into the WP config file. And the reason why that's important is because within settings, within your WordPress dashboard, when you go to settings and in general, I know that you can change the URLs here, but the issue is that if by the chance that your website has been compromised and somebody does have access to go into the WP dashboard, they can change this URL and really cause a lot of destruction to your website or undesirable results. By hard coding it here in the WP config, which I'm going to do right now, and let's comment that out for now. If I reload this page, you can see that these are now unhighlighted and the attacker cannot change the URL. That adds an extra layer of security in the event that somebody has gone in and have access to the dashboard that should not have access to the dashboard. The next thing I want to show, if somebody goes in the dashboard, they can go to Appearance and Editor and make coding changes to your current theme. This is all code to the theme that I have installed, which is the default 2017 theme. And you definitely don't want that. In order to disable this functionality within the WP config on line 26, as you can see, there is defined disallow file edit, and I set it to true, and that will prevent Appearance and Editor from even showing up in the menu and even allowing this capability. So if I reload the page, you can see that because I was on that page, it's saying that I don't have access to it. So let me go back. Let me just click on Dashboard to just reset everything. If I go to Appearance, you can see that the editor is no longer an option within the menu. So we can prevent some unauthorized coding changes in the event that somebody broke into the dashboard. The next thing I'm going to showcase is a plugin called Absolutely Glamorous Custom Admin. And this plugin is nice because of two things. If an attacker breaks into your WordPress dashboard, their access is highly limited, and you'll see why. And secondly, for people who do have authorized access to the dashboard, you can prevent them from accidentally breaking the site because they were randomly clicking on things. Under Tools, there's a submenu called AGCA. And then make sure the admin menu is clicked. And as you scroll down, you can see a menu that's similar to your left-hand menu sidebar over here. You can drill down to the submenus, as well as the top menus. You can hide things, and I've already preset certain things that I want to hide to showcase in this demo. So I'm going to apply the admin menu customizations, and I'm going to click on Save Changes. As you can see in the left-hand side, only certain options are now available: posts, media, pages, comments, and users. Everything else is hidden. So that's a nice feature to have, not just to prevent unauthorized access, but also to prevent authorized access people from wreaking havoc on your website. Now, as a developer, and you have to gain access to that, if I move away from that page, I no longer have the option to unhide it. So the bad part about this is that it could cause some inconvenience to a developer who needs those particular menu items to make changes. The easiest way to work around this is via FTP. What you'll do is you'll go to WP Content, you'll go into the plugins folder, you'll take the folder that contains this plugin, you'll just move it up one directory. You'll move it away from the plugins directory. And then from there, if I reload the page, essentially the plugin is no longer active. You'll have access to all the menu items. You can do your changes, and then when you're done, you could just put it back into plugins, put the AG Custom Admin folder back into plugins, reload the page, and now it's back. That's how I get around it. It's a little inconvenience, but for the security aspect of it, I think it's worth it. The next thing I want to go over is some coding adjustments to the Htaccess file. So we'll go back to our text editor. And within your root folder, there should be a file called .htaccess. And I want you guys to focus on lines 1 through line 12. These two are two particular settings that I typically use when I do a security audit and when I have to make some security changes. The first code, and this essentially will lock down the wp-config file from any unauthorized access. Lines 7 to 12 will prevent spiders or bots from scanning websites for author names and then using that to brute force your website. Another Htaccess file trick that I do is within WP Content and within Uploads. This is not default. I have to create this Htaccess file. The one in root should typically, there should already be a Htaccess file. So within WP Content, within Uploads, I had to create a new Htaccess file. And then in that HT file, I have this line of code, kill PHP execution. So this will prevent any type of PHP execution from actually occurring. Particularly why this is important is that a lot of attacks, what they'll do is they'll try to upload some sort of a PHP file that then they can then go to the URL and execute, and they try to take advantage of any type of upload capabilities that the site may have in terms of vulnerability. And then the default typically for uploads is within the uploads folder. So to prevent any type of unauthorized PHP execution, you can just turn it off. There's really no need for that type of access level. The next thing I want to go over is turning off XML-RPC. When you go through turning off this XML-RPC technique, you probably should turn it off and then see if you lose any type of functionality on your site. It was primarily made for offline blog posting, but most likely you're probably not using that feature. However, if you're using Jetpack, you're out of luck because you'll need this XML-RPC feature to be turned on. But if you're using Jetpack for the monitoring capabilities that it offers, I highly recommend checking out iTheme Sync because it does just that. It's a premium service, but by paying for a service like iTheme Sync, you do have other types of services that comes with it that I think makes it worth the extra premium that you have to pay. Now, Having XML-RPC turned on does leave a big security vulnerability to your site because it allows your site to get DDoSed and brute force in terms of the password. There are a few plugins that will turn off XML-RPC. Now, I'm not sure if they turn it off completely, which is why I prefer to do it manually. In addition, I like to limit the use of third-party plugins whenever I can, since I can't control the quality, nor do I know exactly what I'm getting myself into when I'm installing a plugin. I don't know everything about that plugin unless I take the time and look through all the code. Turning off the XML-RPC, there's not too many steps that doing it manually, it's not really a big deal, and I'm going to go through those steps right now. The first thing that you need to do is you're going to have to add some code within the functions.php, and that's going to be located in themes. Now, because this is a demo, I'm going to do it in the main themes function.php, but best practice is to create a child theme. If you don't have one, create a child theme, and then within the functions.php child theme is to add the following line of code. And that code is identified from line 13 to line 17, which you can see here. The next thing to do is to go into the root folder and open up the wp-config file. And all the way at the bottom, I'm going to uncomment this line on line 100. So adding a filter, XML-RPC underscore enable, comma, and then returns false. And then within Htaccess, add in the line of code between line 17 to line 22. And then the last thing is to go to settings and go to writing and then delete everything that's in the update services and save changes. So that's not too bad. There's about 4 or 5 steps, but by doing that, you can ensure that XML-RPC is turned off. The next thing I want to cover is file permissions. Typically, file permissions can be set at 644, but I have done 604 and got away with it. You might want to try 604 first, and if you're running into some site issues, then you can up it to 644 for files. For folders, 755, sometimes I get away with doing 705 on the WP content folder and then 555 on all the other folders. wp-config, I've gotten away with 400. iThemes recommends 444. The higher the number, the higher the access level. So I try to get the lowest access that I can get away with and then slowly move up as I find things breaking and then have to release more access level. And then for the Htaccess, and iThemes also recommends this as well, as 444. The next thing I want to go over is a website called IP Neighbors. And what I do with this is I will type in the IP address of the server. Typically, you will get that by going to your cPanel, asking your network administrator. You can ping your URL if you know how to do that and get the IP numbers that way as well. Once you get your IP address, you'll pop it into the lookup. What you want to do with that is, as an example, click on one of these IP addresses. Hopefully, it'll give me a good demo data set. Here's an example IP address. So for this IP address, on this server, it will tell me all the other websites that shares the same server that is shared with my website or the website that you want to test things on. The next site I want to go over is Uptime Robot. Uptime Robot is fantastic. And what this is that it's a free service. 50 monitors essentially means 50 sites or 50 different pages if you want to check different pages on your site. What this service does is it'll ping your website every 5 minutes. It doesn't affect your Google Analytics. It's not going to have higher stats or anything like that. This ping service essentially notifies you whenever your site goes down. That's something that's good to have. You know, if your site goes down, you want to know right away. You don't want your client to be like, hey, FYI, your site been down for like 2 hours or 2 days. You don't want that. You want to be proactive about this stuff. So Uptime Robot's free, and the moment your site goes down, you'll know about it. It'll send you an email. I think if you pay for it, not only can you change the duration to a lower number, instead of 5 minutes, it could be 1 minute or every 30 seconds, whatever, but it can also send you a text message. The last thing I want to go over is the WP Scan vulnerability database. What this is that it is the repository of all the vulnerabilities that people have found. Once you sign up to the email alerts, it will send you vulnerabilities almost every day of different plugins, themes, even WordPress core vulnerabilities to your inbox. What I do is, because this is basically every single plugin out in existence as well as themes, you know, your inbox is going to be filled pretty fast. What I do is, typically the vulnerability, when it comes from this site, the email subject will contain the plugin name or the WordPress core or the theme name in the subject line. What you want to do is you want to have it so that if it doesn't contain whatever plugins and themes that you've listed in your list, then move it forward to trash or automatically trash it. And that way your inbox will only contain the alerts of your particular plugins, themes, and the WordPress core. So that's how I utilize WP Scan vulnerability. So I'll know if there's a vulnerability in the wild because I'll get the alerts right away. And if there's an update, great, I'll update right away. If not, then I'll keep my eye on an update, and I'll also keep an eye on the website that has that plugin. That's a tip I offer in terms of WP Scan vulnerability database.